Today we're ranking 27 of the most popular dog food brands, and we're focusing our ranking based on nutrient quality and bioavailability. So some of the brands that you think might rank high might actually rank somewhere else. So today, first we're gonna dive into how does our dog actually process food and why that is. Then we're gonna get into a couple things to think about when it comes to your dog's weight and when, the nutrients that you're giving your dog. Then we're gonna get into the actual ranking of all the dog food. So let's get right into it. Before we rank anything, you need to understand what your dog is actually designed to eat. Your dog is actually a carnivore, and they have specific needs that differ from ours. First, let's talk about the dog's mouth and jaw. When you think about a human jaw, you can grind food from side to side by moving your jaw. The dog cannot do that. They can't move their bottom jaw side to side. They can only move up and down. They're designed to grab food, shred it off of whatever they're eating, and gulp it down very quickly. The human stomach and the dog's stomach are actually very different as well. Once your dog rips off that food and swallows it, it's now going down to their stomach. The dog's stomach is very acidic, much more acidic than the human stomach. And this is on purpose. Because of that high acidity, your dog can tolerate bacteria that we cannot. So as that food enters their stomach, the high acidity in the stomach breaks down that food, removes harmful bacteria, and continues processing the food, getting nutrients into that dog's system as quickly and efficiently as possible. After that food leaves the stomach, it's then going to your dog's intestines. Now, the human intestines are about 25 feet long, and it takes several days for us to process the food that we're eating and get it out of our body. The dog is not like that. The dog will process food very quickly. Their intestines are maybe 12 feet long most, and within a couple of hours of eating, that food is cleared the stomach, gone through the intestines, all the nutrients pulled out, and then whatever's left is going out the rear end. So what does all this mean for your dog and their food? Well, we know that dogs are carnivores. We know they're meant to eat very efficiently. This efficient system tells us what our dog is designed to eat, and if we can give them the food that mimics their ancestral diet that their body processes most efficiently, it's going to be in the best interest of our dog. So what is bioavailability? Bioavailability is the percentage of food that your dog's body can actually absorb and use in the dog's process of building muscle, maintaining health, maintaining the immune system, etc. When it comes down to dog food, we basically have two main groups of food. We have the fresh and raw food camp, and then we have the kibble food camp. Now, there are some foods in between, which we'll talk about as we get into the tier list, but we do need to understand big picture some things about kibble versus the fresh food and the raw food. Most kibble is made through a process called extrusion. Extrusion is when ingredients are ground together, kind of like a Play-Doh mixture, and then pumped through a bunch of machines, heat applied, to result in the little nuggets that we call kibble. What happens during this process is that the extreme heat is actually damaging the natural vitamins, minerals, and enzymes that are in the food. This is why almost every type of kibble, from Purina to Blue Buffalo to whatever kibble you're looking at, has to spray on some type of vitamin pack at the end of the process to reintroduce vitamins and minerals back into the food that were cooked out during the heating process. So what's the result of this? The result is that kibble is actually harder to digest. You can notice this when you're looking at your dog's poop. Your dog's poop can be an indicator of how efficient the fuel for the body and how the body is processing that food. When your dog has big, smelly, or soft stools, that means there's low bioavailability in the food and it's not as efficient as we would like it to be. Now, what about the raw and fresh food side of the house? Fresh food and raw contain about 70% water. This is just like real meat. Your dog's body knows this and can process it very efficiently, and it's very high in bioavailability. So what's the result of this? Your dog's poops are more efficient. They have less poop and they're smaller, which I know we're talking a lot about poop, but that can give you a good indication of how the body is processing the food and the quality of the food that you're giving your dog. So as I was building this tier list, I got into kind of a rabbit hole on dog ingredients and reading the label. I'm not gonna go into all of that extreme detail. We can in a different video. If you want that, you'll have to let me know in the comments below. But there are some things I found out about the ingredient label that I do feel like are important to mention to you because I found it very interesting as I was looking into this. So on an ingredient label, the ingredients are actually listed by weight before cooking. This mainly applies to the kibble side of the house. Fresh chicken, a lot of kibble has chicken in it, but fresh chicken is about 70% water. Obviously that weight is gonna go down once that food is cooked. So there's a little bit of discrepancy there. This is why you'll see something like chicken meal ranked higher on an ingredient label. Chicken meal is already dehydrated prior to weighing. Think of it like 1 pound of chicken meal might actually be 4 pounds of fresh chicken before it was dehydrated and cooked. Now I got into this rabbit hole deep, I'm sure you've heard about it too. Meal, what does that mean? Chicken meal. So when you see something like chicken meal, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just dehydrated chicken with the moisture removed. Now if you see something like meat meal or byproduct meal on the label, to me that's a red flag because they're not really disclosing what all is going into that meal. So if they say chicken meal, I know that it's dehydrated chicken. If they say meat meal or byproduct meal, we don't really know what that is. It's a little bit of a mystery, and that's a red flag. So if you see vague terms like meat meal, poultry byproduct meal, animal fat, or animal fat meal. These are all an indicator that the manufacturer is trying to hide something. If they say something like turkey liver meal, turkey meal, chicken meal, those are generally not that bad. Something else you have to watch out for is known as ingredient splitting. Some brands might split ingredients to make them appear lower on the list. An example of this is if you see something like peas, pea protein, pea fiber, shelled peas, all separately, that means that the ingredients are being split, so they rank lower on the ingredient list. If you added all of those split ingredients together, they could potentially rank #1 on the list due to the weight of that overall product. On the back of the box, you might see something like crude protein, crude fat, or crude fiber, for example. You don't really need to pay attention to the word crude, that's just the way they are analyzing the macronutrients, but that's basically how they're guaranteeing what's in the food. For most dogs, when it comes to protein, you're looking for about 25 to 30+% of the analysis. For fats, you're looking anywhere between 12 to 18% at least. And for fiber, 3 to 5% does good. So before we move on, we do need to talk about something that's pretty serious. It's the link between food and heart disease. When the grain-free trend hit, manufacturers needed to switch the way they were binding their kibbles together. So they switched from corn and wheat to legumes. Legumes are things like peas, lentils, chickpeas, and beans. So in 2018, the FDA investigated the link between heart disease and heart failure, DCM, to the grain-free diets that dogs are eating. The theory that the FDA came up with is that legumes may be interfering with taurine. Taurine is an amino acid that your dog needs, and it's related to heart health. Most dogs make their own taurine from meat, but if the legumes are blocking that process, the taurine becomes deficient and the heart fails. So when I've been ranking these foods that we're going to go through here in just a second in the tier list, if I see legumes, I look more thoroughly into that food to investigate where they should be at on the tier list. If they're heavy in legumes, I'm moving them down in the tier list for sure. And because of this issue, some of the premium foods that you might have heard about or maybe even feeding yourself, they might surprise you where they end up ranking. This doesn't mean that grain-free formulations are always bad, but I do believe that legume-heavy formulas carry a lot of risk. Traditional grains like oats, barley, and rice are much safer binders when it comes to kibble food. Before we get into the tier list, I want you to take a real hard look at your dog and let's see where they're at on the obesity scale. Obesity can remove 2 years from your dog's life. It's also linked to joint problems, heart disease, arthritis, and a whole host of other health problems. So let's look real quick at where your dog is. The easiest way to do this is to check your dog's ribs. We'll call this the rib test. If you take your hand like this and you rub your finger across your knuckles, if you're rubbing your hand across your dog's ribs and you feel them like your knuckles, that means they're too skinny and you probably want to increase their calories just a little bit. If you hold up your hand and you start touching around your thumb area, you feel how you have some extra meat and flesh right there. If you're rubbing your hand across your dog's ribs and you're feeling this amount of flesh, that means they're probably too fat and you want to reduce their calories just a little bit to put them in a slight calorie deficit to help them lose a little bit of that extra fat they're carrying. How do you know if your dog's just right? Hold up the back of your hand and rub it with your other hand. You feel these bones that connect your fingers to your wrists? That's the kind of feeling that you're looking for whenever you rub across your dog's ribs. You should barely be able to feel them, barely be able to see them, but you can tell they're there. And if you have that giant couch potato sitting on your couch, go ahead and start reducing their food by about 10% of the calories and get them into tip-top shape before bringing them back up to maintenance calories. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the tier list. We're gonna start with the S tier, which is maximum bioavailability for your dog. So we're gonna start at the S tier. We're gonna go all the way down through all the tiers, ranking the foods that we've selected. It's 27 total foods. With that being said, an S tier food, maximum bioavailability, this is gonna be a raw food, fresh food, a air fried food, a baked food. We got some specific foods we're gonna go through with you. But the first one on the S tier is gonna be We Feed Raw. So We Feed Raw has both raw patties and they have freeze-dried raw. What We Feed Raw has done is they have the high-pressured processing where they're cleaning off the food, getting rid of that bacteria before they send it out to you in these convenient packages. It's very easy to utilize. You can cut this open. It's like a pound of ground beef essentially, but it's got everything your dog needs in the ingredients already prepackaged for you. There's nothing else you have to think about. You just dish this out to your dog and you're good to go. This is about as safe as it gets when it comes to feeding raw food due to the high pressure processing. No fillers, no grains, no legumes, just meat, organs, bone, all ground up, some added vitamins and minerals to make sure that everything's balanced out for your dog, ready to go in a simple package. Key ingredients, they do have the full ingredient list on their website. This is the beef recipe that I'm holding right here. This one has beef heart, beef liver, beef muscle meat, beef neck with bone, etc. So it's all complete meals like we already talked about. Let's talk about cost real quick. I ran the cost analysis for all the foods we're reviewing today. Based on a dog, it's about 50 pounds. I chose 50 pounds because of course you're gonna have dogs that are over 100 pounds. Then you're gonna have dogs that are on the small end of the spectrum weighing only a couple pounds, so 50 pounds is right in the middle. And for We Feed Raw, if you're feeding the raw patties 100% of the dog's diet, that's gonna come up to about $300 per month for your dog, and it is a subscription-based plan. So you go on their website, you set up a subscription for your dog, they'll start shipping out the food to you immediately, and then you can cancel or modify your subscription at any time. So real quick, let me just switch over to the freeze-dried raw. The freeze-dried raw they came out with, I wanna say in 2024. It comes in these convenient packages, and the benefit to freeze-dried raw is you don't have to handle freezer space or fridge space, but you still get all the benefits of raw food. So you could feed your dog this by itself and it'd be a complete meal and diet for your dog, or you could, feed it with some other types of food. This is great for when you're traveling with raw because you don't have to refrigerate it or freeze it and the dogs tear it up. It's also conveniently sized to be training treats as well, and I do use this in some of my personal training. All right, so that's We Feed Raw. That's number 1 on the tier list. All right, coming in at number 2 on the list, still an S tier, is gonna be Ziwi Peak air-dried beef. This is the closest food you can get to raw in a shelf-stable form. There is an interesting ingredient in the Ziwi that I wanted to bring up, which is gonna be green-lipped mussel. It's a superfood. It's naturally packed with a bunch of nutrients that are gonna support your dog's joints. A lot of foods are gonna try and add these nutrients artificially, while Ziwi's bringing in the nutrients naturally through the green-lipped mussel. Some of the main ingredients you're gonna find are beef, beef heart, beef lung, beef tripe, which we'll talk more about here in a little bit, beef liver, beef trachea, etc. Lots of beef parts, like I already said. The closest thing you're gonna get to raw in a shelf-stable form. And for cost for a 50-pound dog, it's gonna come out to be around $380 a month to feed completely Ziwi. Coming in 3 on the list, S tier still, is gonna be Farmer's Dog. Farmer's Dog is gonna be human-grade food, gently cooked and delivered right to your door. So let's take a look at it right here. We got the Farmer's Dog, this is what it looks like coming in the package. We'll get more into that in just a second. Now, I do wanna point out that the Farmer's Dog does include chickpeas in their formulas. Remember we talked earlier about legumes, how they can be adverse to the taurine in the dog and block the taurine, not good to go overall. I will say, again, I looked into this, went down the rabbit hole. It's not that big of a deal in Farmer's Dog or other foods that might have it that are fresh food, because they still retain all the moisture in the food. It's more of a problem whenever it comes to the kibble and the way that kibble is processed. So even though Farmer's Dog does include chickpeas in some of their formulas, don't think that's a showstopper if you think this is the right food for you and your dog. Now, some of the major ingredients you're gonna find in Farmer's Dog are gonna be, your meat's gonna be number one, like turkey. They're gonna have things like spinach, carrots, broccoli, additional vitamins. There are gonna be some chickpeas in there, things of this nature. Now, one thing I will say about the Farmer's Dog is it can be a little messy and difficult to handle. It comes in this package, so whenever you get this package, you basically have to cut the top and then squeeze it out like you were squeezing toothpaste out of a tube. You squeeze out your dog's daily portion, and then you have to save the rest for the next meal, which is also messy because then you have to get another bag to store it in, like a gallon Ziploc. You put that in there, you zip it up, you store it till the next day or the next meal. So that's the one downside to Farmer's Dog, is how messy it can be in handling it. Coming in at number 4 is gonna be maize. Now, maize is it's a raw food. You're gonna feed it raw, but the convenient part about maize is that it actually comes in little cubes. So it's super easy to scoop out and portion to your dog, very easy to handle, high quality ingredients. The ingredients you're gonna find in this are like beef, beef liver, kale, chia seeds, fish oil, things of that nature. You're gonna find that in maize. Maize also includes an ingredient called beef sweetbreads. Now, sweetbreads are actually beef organ, which is what we're looking for to incorporate in our dog's food. Cost of maize for a 50-pound dog is going to come to be around $325 a month. And they also have convenient things like, these are some maize freeze-dried treats you can use for your training. So that was pretty cool too. Coming in at number 5 is the Honest Kitchen. They have a dehydrated beef formula and other formulas, but basically it is human grade food. It's dehydrated. What you do is you add water to it and it makes some type of stew for your dog. Now, I can just imagine this being a little bit messy, so if you don't like messy food, this might not be for you, but it has great ingredients. It's got dehydrated beef, it's got sweet potatoes, flaxseed, eggs, these types of things. It's shelf stable, it's travel friendly, a lot of dogs enjoy it, and for a 50-pound dog, it comes in around $160 a month, which is not too bad when it comes to the higher level foods. Coming in at number 6 is gonna be Ollie, another subscription-based plan. I guess the big 3 of subscription-based plans are gonna be We Feed Raw, Farmer's Dog, and Ollie. Ollie is gently cooked food delivered for you and your dog as part of their subscription service. It's human grade, highly bioavailable, very similar to the Farmer's Dog, although it does also include chia seeds and spinach specifically to improve your dog's digestive health. Ingredients are ingredients like beef, beef heart, sweet potato, peas, potatoes, these types of things. Of note, Ollie also has a legume. It has peas. Remember we talked about in Farmer's Dog, the legumes not being that big of a deal when it comes to a fresh food due to the moisture content. The same thing applies to Ollie. It's not that big of a concern due to the moisture content and the way the food is processed, but it does include peas, just in case you were wondering. So for a 50-pound dog, Ollie comes in to be around $250 a month. And this is the type of packaging that you can expect whenever it arrives. Coming in at number 7 is gonna be Spot and Tango. This is a fresh food. It looks kind of like a kibble, but it's not a kibble. This fresh fruit has been gently dried, so all the nutrients are still highly bioavailable. Ingredients you're gonna find in this are things like beef, barley, flax, carrots, all these types of whole foods. Comes out to be about $190 a month for a 50-pound dog. Coming in at number 8 on the list is gonna be the Raw and Paw Company raw food. Now they have 2 types of raw food. They have their complete raw meals, and then they have their freeze-dried raw. This is probably one of the purest forms of raw food that's on this list. The only reason it doesn't rank higher is because they don't do any type of high pressure processing to remove some of that bacteria that could affect humans. So when you're handling this, you do need to be a little bit more careful. Now with that being said, one of the main ingredients in this that I find very interesting is tripe. And tripe is the lining of beef intestine. And so this turns out to be a superfood for dog, packed full of nutrients that you won't find anywhere else. For a 50-pound dog, this comes out to be about $315 a month if you were feeding just Raw and Paw Company raw food. And like I said, they got the freeze-dried raw version and then the actual raw food. It comes in these tubes. So what you do is you just slice open the tube, put the raw in the bowl. You can heat it up just a little bit if needed to be room temperature, and then give it to your dog. For the freeze-dried raw, you just pop it out the bag, give it straight to your dog and you're good to go. Coming in at number 9 on the tier list is going to be Badlands Ranch. This is another air-dried food. It is celebrity backed, which means it's going to cost a little bit more, but it is extremely bioavailable. It is a high quality food. You're going to find your meat in there like your beef, beef heart, beef liver, these types of things. You're gonna find flaxseed, sweet potato, pumpkin, etc. in the ingredients. Very convenient, comes in a sealed bag. All you do is just open the bag, dump it out for your dog. But because of the celebrity backing, this food comes out to be about $400 a month for a 50-pound dog. All right, coming in at number 10 on the tier list, the final S tier food is gonna be Primal freeze-dried nuggets. This is certified organic, freeze-dried raw. You can feed this, I think it's designed actually as a topper, but you can feed it as a complete meal for your dog. You've got your whole ingredients in here like your beef, beef heart, beef lung, beef liver, carrots, squash, other vegetables. Again, whole foods are in this right here. Super easy, super convenient. You just open the bag, dump it out for your dog. If you were to feed this as a full diet for a 50-pound dog, it's gonna come out to be around $500 a month. All right, now we're gonna move into the A tier foods. These are gonna be your premium dry foods like your kibbles. The things we're looking for in this tier of kibble is that it's a high quality kibble. There should be no legumes in it. I should have done a good job of removing those from the foods in this list, so let's get right into it. So number 11 on the list and first one in the A tier is Carna 4. The baked chicken recipe. This food is baked, so it's not extruded like normal kibble is, which makes it unique. It preserves all the nutrients in the food through the baking process. This food also has 0 synthetic vitamins or minerals. All of the nutrients come from sprouted seeds or whole foods that are in the recipe. You'll find ingredients like chicken, chicken liver, eggs, organic sprouted barley, so on and so forth. If you were to feed this as a complete meal for a 50-pound dog, it would come out to be around $200 a month. Next up, number 12 on the overall list, number 2 in the A tier list is gonna be Open Farm. Open Farm has an ancient grains beef recipe, which seems like their best recipe. Top ingredients are beef, oats, whitefish meal. So remember that meal means that it's the white fish ground up before it's dehydrated, but it's not a mystery meal, so we eat this one, not bad. It's got millet, quinoa, and other things in the ingredients. There's no peas, no lentils, no chickpeas, just meat and heart-healthy grains like the oats. This is what premium kibble looks like. Coming up next in the A tier is gonna be Origin. One of the things about Origin is that the first 14 ingredients are animal-based. Things like chicken, turkey, flounder, whole mackerel, chicken liver, or a combination of all the above. The concern though is that ingredients 14 to 20, the next 6 ingredients are different types of legumes. Even with this amount of legumes, this still ranks A tier due to the high amount, over 85% of animal product. They use the legumes as binders, not for protein, so it would still be considered A tier, although if you want to avoid legumes completely, go for the Open Farm. For a 50-pound dog, this comes out to be about $120 a month. Coming up next in A tier, number 14 overall is Farmina. In Farmina, you'll find ingredients like venison, dehydrated venison, pea starch, fish oil, things of this nature. You might see pea starch and be a little bit concerned, but again, Farmina is using pea starch as a binder and not as a protein source, which allows it to be ranked in A tier. But if you want to avoid the peas overall, you don't have to go with this food, obviously. This is a high quality kibble and it comes out to be about $110 a month for a 50-pound dog. All right, coming up next, number 15 overall, still in the A tier, Just Food for Dogs. Now the interesting thing about Just Food for Dogs is they actually have their own USDA kitchen. The downside to Just Food for Dogs is that it's very carb heavy. Some ingredients you'll find in here are gonna be chicken, water, interesting they put that as number 2, chicken liver, oats, brown rice, carrots, kale, potato starch, etc. So we can see those top tier ingredients are right at the beginning and it's a moist food. If you don't mind feeding your dog a higher carb ratio in their food, then this food might be for you. It comes out to be about $260 per month for a 50-pound dog, but don't forget your dog's a carnivore. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and move into the B tier foods. These foods are a safe but value option. They use ancient grains in their recipes, and most of them stick away from legumes. If I found one that has legumes in it, I try to point that out for you. First up in the B tier, number 16 overall, this might surprise you, Costco food, Kirkland Signature Kibble. Ingredients like chicken, chicken meal, whole brown rice are some of the top ingredients you'll find in this recipe. No peas, no lentils, no legumes, no corn, no soy. This is a good and safe value kibble. And for a 50-pound dog, it comes out to be about $45 a month, which you really can't beat. All right, coming up next in B tier, number 17 overall is From, specifically their Gold line. Now the Gold line is a little bit different than the Heartland line, which I have right here. The Heartland line actually was a little bit of a concern to me because if we look at their ingredients, it starts off with beef, pork, meat, and bone meal, and then it's lentils, peas, chickpeas. Those are the next couple of ingredients. So that was a concern for me with the Heartland formula. The Gold formula doesn't have that, doesn't have legumes, doesn't have lentils. The Gold line specifically just has meat and the ancient grains like the oats and rice I already mentioned. From has been owned by the family for over 100 years. So it's a great, safe, mid-tier level kibble. If you have a 50-pound dog, this food comes out to be about $75 a month. So now we're gonna go ahead and go into the C tier. The C tier still has decent meat in the recipe, but it also has risky binders involved. Let's get into it. Coming up in number 1 in the C tier is gonna be Stella and Chewy's raw coated kibble. In the Stella and Chewy's raw coated kibble, their first 3 ingredients are meat: beef, beef meal, lamb meal. Then they get right into lentils, peas, chickpeas, etc., which is a red flag and which is why they're in the C tier. If you have a 50-pound dog, the raw coated kibble comes out to be about $100 per month for your dog. Quick mention about Stella and Chewy's. Although their raw coated kibble is a C tier, they also have A tier food. So for example, I have some of their Stella Super Beef. These are the meal mixers. It's a freeze-dried raw. And then they have the Super Beef dinner patties. These are gonna be more expensive to feed your dog, but they are a good option as a topper. You can feed your dog completely these if you want, but let's just go through some of the ingredients real quick. Beef, beef heart, beef kidney, beef tripe. Remember we talked about the tripe earlier. So that's a super plus right there. They got the tripe in there. Beef liver, beef bone, pumpkin seed, cranberries, spinach. So they're just gonna go down to some nice convenient whole foods. I don't see any peas, no lentils, nothing of concern. So I would rank these either in A tier or at the bottom of the S tier. So mention for Stella and Chewy's freeze-dried raw products to go there. All right, coming up number 2 in C tier, number 19 overall is gonna be Akana. Akana is actually from the same company as Origin, it's just a different formulation, a different recipe. Now with Akana in particular, the concern comes in with ingredients 4 through 10. All ingredients 4 through 10 are lentils and legumes. We've got red lentils, we've got green peas, we've got pinto beans, etc. All of this is a major concern with that potential legume and heart disease link. So with that being said, keep that in mind when you're looking at Akana. If you have a 50-pound dog, this comes out to be about $95 a month. Next up in C tier is gonna be Wellness Core. This is a classic grain-free recipe that dominated the market about 5 to 10 years ago. Very heavy on peas and lentils, so word of caution. For a 50-pound dog, it comes out to be about $90 per month to feed Wellness Core. Next up in C tier is gonna be Blue Buffalo, number 20 overall. Blue Buffalo is notorious for ingredient splitting, so be very careful when you're looking at Blue Buffalo as a potential to feed your dog. If you have a 50-pound dog, Blue Buffalo comes out to be around $70 per month if you're gonna feed it. Next up in C tier, number 22 overall, is gonna be Taste of the Wild. This is the High Prairie formula. The thing about Taste of the Wild is that it has very cool exotic meat. Let's see what they got in here. Water buffalo, lamb meal, chicken meal, sweet potatoes. Here we go, peas, pea flour. So when we see peas and pea flour, we already see that ingredient splitting. Chicken fat, egg product, roasted bison, roasted venison, beef flavor, etc. So even though it has the cool exotic meat proteins in it, it relies heavily on the peas, which is a red flag. It uses the pea protein to boost the protein numbers artificially and is very carb heavy for a wild formula. If you're gonna feed this to your 50-pound dog, it's gonna cost you about $65 a month. Now we're entering D tier territory. In D tier, we have expensive grains. But most of the foods we're gonna find in this D tier are gonna be your veterinary recommended foods. Coming in number 1 on D tier, number 23 overall, Royal Canin. If you have a 50-pound dog, Royal Canin is gonna cost you about $95 a month. Now that $95 is buying you chicken byproducts and fillers. This is a plant-based diet flavored with chicken. Coming in next in D tier, number 24 overall, is gonna be Hill's Science Diet. The thing about Hill's Science Diet is that 5 of the first 7 ingredients are grains. Let's take a quick look. We got chicken, pearled barley, brown rice, brewer's rice, whole grain wheat, whole grain corn, corn protein meal, chicken fat, chicken liver flavor. So as you can see, that's what we're dealing with. If you have a 50-pound dog, Hill's Science Diet's gonna cost you around $80 a month to feed a plant-based diet. All right, coming up next in the D tier, number 25 overall, Purina Pro Plan. Let's take a look at the ingredients real quick. We've got salmon, rice, barley, canola meal, fish meal, dry yeast, beef fat preserve, oatmeal, salmon meal, pea protein. So ingredient number 4 on this is actually canola meal. Canola meal is the leftover pulp production when they're making canola oil, and Purina uses it as a cheap protein booster. Purina will argue that canola meal has good amino acids, but at the end of the day, it's still an industrial byproduct. A carnivore, like your dog, has no business getting protein from canola meal. If you're gonna feed your dog Purina Pro Plan, it's gonna come out to be around $75 a month for a 50-pound dog. Coming up at number 26 is gonna be Victor. While the ingredient list in Victor isn't too bad, the main problem with Victor is all the recalls that it's had. It's had multiple recalls throughout the year 2023 and 2024 due to salmonella and other issues. So that safety factor puts it down at the bottom of the list in the D tier. If you're gonna feed Victor to a 50-pound dog, it's gonna cost you about $60 a month. And number 27, I hesitate on how to rank this, and the overall ranking is My Pet Carnivore. My Pet Carnivore is a whole prey-based food. What they do is they take a prey animal, they grind it up, and that's it. The problem though is that if you're not an experienced raw food feeder, you might miss out on essential vitamins and minerals that your dog needs that are not in that ground up animal. With foods like We Feed Raw, they ensure that your dog is getting enough vitamins, minerals, and nutrients from the addition that they add in their formulas. My Pet Carnivore doesn't do that. They take the prey animal, grind it up, give it to you to give to your dog. So you could be missing out on some vitamins and minerals, which over time could result in a deficiency with your dog. So if you're gonna feed something like My Pet Carnivore, you have to pay very close attention and know what you're doing in regards to nutrition. If you're gonna feed My Pet Carnivore to a 50-pound dog, it's gonna cost you around $270 a month. So there's the truth about dog food. Just because something costs around $100 a month and your vet sells it, doesn't mean it has your dog's best interest in mind. Here's my advice. If you can afford an S-tier food, go for it. Whether that's We Feed Raw, Raw and Paw Company, Farmer's Dog, Ollie, Mave, Ziwi, whatever you can afford, feed it to your dog if possible. And if you're on a budget, skip those D tier foods. Go for an A or B tier kibble and then supplement a little bit of raw or fresh food on top if possible. For example, you could take a kibble like the Kirkland Costco brand, you could feed that as your base, then you could add a little bit of We Feed Raw on top. Another example could be you've got that Kirkland base and then you put some Ziwi on top. You can mix and match and rotate foods as you see fit and keeping your dog's interest high while having their best interest in mind. You know that your dog is a carnivore, and the closer you can feed them to what their biology actually needs, the better off they're gonna be long term. And if you wanna learn the dog training basics, click this video right here. I'll see you there.